welcome to another Blender Cookie tutorial. This is David Ward, and we're going to be going into part 8 of our Dragon tutorial series here. When last I left you, we had just finished building the rig for our dragon, whom we named Quaid. So Quaid has a skeleton now, we just need to apply it. And also one thing you might have noticed if you watched the video closely, I failed to copy over the eyebrow and ear bones. So I went ahead and did that while you weren't looking, and if you downloaded the blend file from Blender Cookie, you'll notice that I went ahead and saved that there. So anyways, if you haven't done it, go ahead and do that. Just refer back to part 7 where I cloned the other, or excuse me, duplicated the other bones. Some of that 3ds Max language sticking with me after all these years. So anyways, once you get that done, now you can continue here. First thing I want to do, since we set up a shape key previously, go to here, and remember the jaw open. We can see that. We don't want to control it this way, we want to control it with this jawbone that we made. So let's look at our shape keys, or excuse me, our vertex groups here. We have one called jaw. So I want to go ahead and rename this one to, let's name it jaw shape key, okay? And then because this bone here is named jaw also, and when we apply the rig to the mesh, it'll overwrite that name. So anyways, so let's just do that. Let's grab the mesh, then shift to grab one of the bones and control P, and we're going to set the parent to the armature deform with automatic weights. It'll take a second, and there we go. And then for the most part, let's put this on median point. For the most part, that automatic weight will give us what we're looking for. It'll paint things pretty close to the way they need to be painted. However, sometimes you got to go and clean up. So, for example, right here, if we move the head around, you can kind of see those teeth are not moving as they should. Also, I need to go ahead and, while I'm here, go ahead and grab those eyeballs. Let's go into wireframe view. Sometimes it's really hard to select something if there's a bone in front of it in pose mode. So let's turn off that layer for now. Let's grab those eyeballs, deselect the rest of the mesh. Now we can turn that layer back on, back to solid view. Got those eyeballs selected, both of them first. Shift select that head bone, control P. And this one we're just going to set the parent to the bone. So now when we move it around, the eyeballs will follow along with the bone. Okay, so now we got to get those teeth to where they follow along as well, and the jaw here where it deforms properly. So let's undo that. Okay, and let's see what we can do here. Let's look in our, let's go to weight paint mode. We can see that our jaw it's almost the way we want. So we rotate. It's one thing. It's a nice thing you can do while you're in weight paint mode, is you can still manipulate the bones and where they're moving. So what I was going to do was use the vertex group that we did when we made our jawbone, but it doesn't really look like I need to. Well, actually I will for the teeth, because their bottom teeth are not coming down. So let's do this. Let's tab into edit mode, and let's select that vertex group that we made. Should be way at the top. There we go. Jaw shape key. Select all those guys, and let's find the other jaw right there, and we're going to assign them to that guy. So now we tab back in edit mode. You can see all those teeth are down there in the bottom now. Okay, so let's grab the head bone, which is that guy right there, and let's just go ahead and click in here and just start painting those teeth in. And let's increase our strength on our brush right there. You know what? An easier way to do this, just go to side view, tab into edit mode. Let's get our vertex selection. Hit A to deselect everything. Click and just drag across those guys, and go ahead and assign them just like we did with the other teeth, and boom, automatically sticks them on there. Now we didn't make a bone for the tongue, so as you can see, it's kind of it's kind of weighted to both the head and the tongue, which is good because it'll kind of follow along both, but yet stay in the middle. So if you like, you can go ahead and rig put go further with the rig and go ahead and put a tongue bone on there if you like. But for this purpose, I don't think it's 100% necessary. So anyways, let's go ahead and start cleaning up the rest of the head because I can see some other issues here. Let's do one thing that'll help save us some time. If we go over here, turn on X mirror. So now when we paint over here on this, for example, on this horn, it's going to paint on the mirror side over there, so we don't have to do it twice. Saves a lot of time. Let's get all those painted in. We want those 100% parented to the head because they're solid, firm objects. We don't want them parented to anything else but the head. So, another thing we can do, pop back into edit mode. Let's select all of those guys. All of the vertices that make up the horns. There we go. And that guy. And a couple of strays right there. All right. So now we have those selected in edit mode. We can tab back out into our paint. Actually, one more thing. Go back into edit mode and go ahead and hit assign so we know that they're assigned to the head. And I'm thinking that the ear bones might have, yep, you can see that lighter blue shade. Tab into edit mode. Since we have the ears, the ear weight selected already. Scroll, there it is, ear.r, and then should be ear base. Yeah, oops, hit my Windows button on accident. We can see that the horns are kind of connected to both of those. We don't want the horns moving at all. So, tab into edit mode. Those are selected. This vertex group is already selected. So, remove those vertices from that vertex group. And we'll tab out. Do the same thing here. Tab into edit mode. Remove. Good. Same thing on this side. Remove. Too bad the X mirror doesn't work when you're doing this. I say too bad, maybe it's a good thing. Remove. You might make a mistake on accident at some point. Okay, and that eyebrow needs to come off. Remove. Probably this one as well. Yep. Where'd it go? Oh, it didn't tab in edit mode. There we go. Okay, so now the horns should only, well, they might be on the neck too. Yep. Gotta watch them. There we go. Maybe this one too. Okay, should be all set. The horns should only be on the head. Yes. Okay. And the jaw should be fine. Actually, might be coming up a little too high here on the cheekbones because it's affecting the eyelids as well. We don't want that to happen. So let's turn our brush to, let's get this a little bigger here. Okay, let's set the tool mix. Okay, there it is. Tool mix. We want it to subtract. So now we click on there. Boom. Clears it out. Great. Okay, so let's kind of clean up the rest of the bones in the general vicinity. Gonna make sure you deselect around the bottom of the eyelid there because we don't want that coming off of the eyeball if he's to, say, glare down some. There we go. Did I not name these guys? Surely I did. Where's it at? Go back to object mode. Brow enter. I put there's an apostrophe after it for some reason. There we go. Wondering why the yep. Huh. Silly me, I forgot to name them properly after I created them. Make sure the ears are okay. And before I forget, let's go ahead and save as Blender or Dragon 08. Save. Okay. All right, so now the X-axis mirror should work. I want to subtract this guy right here. Okay, there. Oops, get some in here. Skinning can be slow and tedious sometimes, but I think that's good. Yeah. All right. So now, I think that's pretty much the only thing that really needs our special attention on the cleanup part. I've had some questions and some thoughts on the webbing between the little wing finger areas, the webbing, if you call it. For the most part, our weights they work pretty well. For the most part. Now, if you're wanting to get really meticulous with it, let's grab our rotator. There we go. Some little more precise rotations. If you want to get really meticulous with it, say you're making an animation where he's asleep or something like that with his wings folded up, then you might want to try a different technique. One thing I'm going to show you here in just a couple of seconds after I kind of get this situated here. Is the cloth simulator. If you've been following the Durian project, you'll notice that they obviously have a dragon as well, and they were having some issues with the dragon's wings. So rather than duplicate their issues and take as long as they had to take to figure it out, I'll just kind of point you in the right direction, and then maybe you can... Jonathan Williamson just did a cloth simulation tutorial, so maybe you can look at that and kind of get some more ideas from that. So, but anyways, what I'm doing right now is I just folded the wing up, as you can see. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, paste it to the other wing, so that now they're even. And right here in my timeline, I'm just going to, on frame 30, I'm going to go ahead and select these guys as well. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and hit I on my keyboard. I'm going to insert a keyframe, and it's going to be on the location, rotation, and scale. I always like to do all three bases. Even though I've only rotated it, I like to put a keyframe on all fronts, rotation, location, and scaling. That way it gets a keyframe at that point in time, no matter what else it's doing. So now I hit the all the way, the jump to the first frame, so it's basically the fast rewind. So I'll get back to frame 0, actually frame 1, and I'm going to hit Alt-R. So I'll clear out all those rotations to put them back in their default pose. I'm going to insert another frame here, location, rotation, scale. So now you can see him, he's folding his wings up like so. Now that's important when you're doing the cloth sim to kind of see how it's working, because if they're just hanging there, then you won't really be able to see how they fold up. So, so they're folding up, and then we'll go ahead and come up to frame, say 50, and clear them out again. Alt-R, and go ahead and hit I. You could also turn on the automatic keyframe insertion for any time you move a bone, it inserts a keyframe for it, but sometimes I just like to do it by hand. So anyways, so now if we rewind all the way to the beginning, hit play, he's going to fold his wings up and then stretch them back out. Okay, so now, important thing I was playing with for the cloth sim. Remember, like I said, for the most part, the automatic weight painting will work, but to make the cloth sim work a little better, we're going to have to modify it some. So let's go ahead and save this, and let's go into the edit mode, and let's select all these vertices here inside the webbing area. So we're going to hit C, actually deselect everything, A on your keyboard, hit C, and let's scroll that down and just click in here and select all these guys. Don't want to select anything on the finger bones themselves, just the webbing. Okay, if you notice, I'm scrolling my mouse wheel to change the influence size of my little selection painter here. And I'm painting through both sides, as you can see. One problem, not problem, but one thing that you'll notice is when you have your selection painter up like this, you cannot rotate your scene around. So it's good to put it in a nice angle, and then just right click out of it when you need to rotate around. Go ahead and select it. Boom, that guy right there. Okay, and a little bit of these as well. Select these guys right there. Okay. And I want to go ahead and make another vertex group over here. So we'll just hit the plus sign and name this web wings. That'll work. Web underscore. I like to separate my words out with underscores. So we'll go ahead and assign those vertices to that for now, and then I can go ahead and deselect them and just do it again on this side. Let's paint those guys on there. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Okay. Now, if you're noticing, like I'll paint and then I'll rotate around. You might be thinking, well, I thought you couldn't rotate. Well, I'm right-clicking after I paint what I want. So I paint it a little bit, right-click, then I can rotate around. So sometimes my fingers just take over and I don't even have to think about it. They just control the scene the way I want. Muscle memory is great. Okay, so we got this wing painted as well, so let's go ahead and assign them now. Deselect everything, and if you hit select, it's going to select all those guys because we assigned them both. Okay, now let's tab into texture, or excuse me, weight paint again, and let's go down to our web wings. There we go. Now, this is pretty much the opposite of what we want. We want everything to be red except for what is. So, tab back into edit mode. We have our web wings selected. Let's go ahead and remove them from the selection, but don't do anything else yet. Go ahead and hit W, select inverse, and now we will assign. Okay, so tab back out and get the web wings group again, and this is exactly what we want now. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and go over to our physics panel. I'm going to hit add a cloth simulator. And we want the pinning to be on. Click that. Scroll down. Should be all the way at the bottom. It's a lot of shape keys. Or maybe it's alphabetical. Yes, there it is. Web wings. Okay. So tab back into object mode. Okay. So now when we hit play, since we have this cloth sim already applied, when we hit play, it's gonna run the simulator. Go ahead and turn off the layer with the bone so we can see, and the layer with the light so we can see our dragon a little better. So now, if I rewind all the way to the beginning, and I hit play, it's going to slowly, frame by frame, and you can see it, kind of the air, the virtual air kind of pushing those wings up, and they're kind of folding up like cloth. But there's a lot of collisions going on. So this is what I was talking about with the developers with the Durian project. They had similar problems like this. You have to play with all these presets, the stiffness and the bending and everything like that. So we'll play with it just for a second, just to kind of show you what it's like. There's some presets here. Let's try leather, thick leathery wings. So let's see if that looks any better. It kind of takes slow, frame by frame. And already I see some issues right here. It's passing through itself. So what we have to do, go ahead and pause that. Rewind it. Okay. Is we have to, cloth collision is turned on, but it needs to have collision with itself. So we have to turn on self collision. And this is where it starts getting hairy. You got to save it often, because a lot of times Blender will crash because it's doing too many calculations, and if your computer is not quite powerful enough, it's going to eat up your memory really fast, and it could cause crashes. So when you're messing with any type of simulator, save often. So one thing you can do, once you get instead of trying to do it like we're doing it right now, just kind of playing around with it and having it calculate on the fly, one thing you can do is just turn it all off, set up your animations to do whatever, and then once you get it done, turn them back on, and then you can do what's called baking. And that's going to be right here, cloth cache. And you can give it a file name if you like, but it's not necessary. And you have to pay attention right here in your file name, or your start and end frames. If you have a frame that's, or excuse me, a video that's 10 seconds long at 30 frames per second, that's going to be 300 frames. So you want to make sure that your end frame is set to 300 instead of the default 250. So anyways, once you get everything all set up, you can bake. You get a little black box where you can see the mouse, and it'll get a number in it, and that'll tell you which frame it's on. And since we turned on that self-collision, it takes a lot of calculations. So I'll go ahead and pause my recording, and after it's done running the simulation, I'll start recording it, and you can take a look at what it looks like. So hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, I've let this sit for a little over 20 minutes. As you can see, it's only on frame 13 by now. So anyways, I'll go ahead and cancel it. The way you cancel it is you just hit escape, and it'll run a little thing, and then it'll be good to go. So we can at least play the first 13 frames. Ooh, see, it gets kind of ugly. It has some self-collisions, and anyways, unless you have a lot of patience, it's probably best just to stick with the default, or the automatic weight painting that we played with before. So anyways, we got this mesh, this mess up mesh now. The way how we gonna fix that? We'll just hit free bake, and it'll clear it out, and then we just go ahead and remove that cloth sim, and boom, there we go, back to normal. So anyways, it's not perfect, but like I said, if you have some more patience and want to play with some more of the cloth sim, then feel free to do just that. So anyways, I promised you some cool poses, so let's just see what we can do. Let's go ahead and turn on our rig layer there, and let's see if we can't give him a pose like he's a roaring at you or something. So let's grab that. I guess it's the front left foot. Side view. Let's go to the global positioning there, and slide that forward some, and then this foot we're going to slide backwards. This foot's going to come forward a little bit, and this foot will come a little bit, and we'll rotate those out to the side. This guy a little bit as well, and this guy. Okay, the reason I went to global so that the feet stay flat on the ground. Now if I went to normal, if I kept it on normal and I rotate around, you can kind of see that it's going to rotate around the bone rather than the global XYZ axis. So kill that rotation there. Okay, so now he's kind of got one foot forward, and let's kind of grab his chest and grab his hips and bring him forward some, like he's about to pounce on you or something. Rotate that around. Let's rotate the tail, kind of where it's whipping around. Yeah. Maybe have him cocking his head, and then you can play with all kinds of poses for this guy. And let's open that jaw. There we go. Let's go to camera view. Let's turn that layer back on. And let's grab the, I guess, the focus point. And to make him look big, it's good to give him a nice high angle, so kind of make his feet look like they're fairly flat, so we're looking up at him. And another thing we can do is go to our camera settings over here, and you can see the default angle of our camera lens is 35, which is like 35 millimeter lens. To make it look a little more realistic, usually around at least 50 kind of helps. So let's try to reposition camera stuff now. And I guess if he's growling at you, he's probably not going to have his little wings that, you know, folded up like that. Oh, one thing that I forgot to do that you might notice if you do something like this is, okay, pay attention, that's how that pose looks. Because if I touch the slider bar at all of these poses are going to clear out because I don't have the automatic keyframe insertion, so they're going to go back to the way they were when they, well, I guess the wings will. The rest of the body should not because they don't have keyframes on them to begin with, but the wings will fall back to the keyframes, see? So, but that's okay, I guess. It's kind of a nice pose there. Turn the bone layer off. So, rawr. Okay, now, as I mentioned back when I did the tower little tutorial thing, I was going to bring it in for our dragon, have him kind of perched on the top of it. So let's do that. So go to File, Append, and we're going to go up, grab that tower.blend, and we can do a couple of things. We can go Scene and grab that scene and bring it in. That's usually what I do. I think we could also go Mesh and grab the mesh like that, but seems like sometimes I have problems with that. So I'll just do Scene. That always works. So we'll just link append that from the library. Now we'll go up here to Scene 01, and there's our tower. It looks like a chess piece or something. Huh? Let's go ahead and rename that. Actually, we don't need to because we're going to delete that. So let's right-click on that guy, W. Actually, not W. Go down to Object, Make Links, Objects to Scene, and we're gonna link it to the first scene. So now go back to the scene. You can see it. There it is. Back to the scene. Go ahead and delete that guy. Now we'll grab our tower here and scale it up, and let's drag it down to where it's kind of below him, maybe a little smaller, kind of give him a nice very large appearance. And now we're going to mount our dragon onto the tower. So let's grab all those bones and let's pop into the the animation. Where are all these guys? I don't know. Wonder where those came from. Go to animation and let's grab all those keyframes and delete them out. So we don't want them there anymore. Go back to default. Got all of those selected. Alt-R, clear out all the rotations, and Alt-G, all the locations. Now we want to turn on that automatic keyframe insertion. So let's have him kind of like he's just climbed up on top of it and he's just, you know, breaking over the top of it. So let's see what we can do to get that to look like that. Might take a little trial and error in some places. Put his hands up there. Rotate his chest around so his there we go. Just climbing up on top of it. Let's get those fingers curled down. Yeah, that's looking pretty nice, huh? And this one will be doing kind of the same thing over here on the side. Maybe on this. I don't remember what you guys told me they were called. The little hide behinds, or parafoot or something. I don't remember. Anyways, so this hand will be gripping this side. And this is where another time that the inverse kinematics on the hands is nice, because you can move the chest around but the hands are never going to move. So have him where he's pretty much holding on by his hands and his feet are still making the ascent, still climbing up. Move the hips out some just a little bit so the foot has room to clear there. A lot of times as an animator, you can kind of you can kind of cheat a little bit. It's like if he's crawling over it like this, you don't necessarily have to worry about the correct 100% placement of these back feet on there because they're hidden by the tower itself. So you can get away with not showing certain things. But since we're kind of just doing a nice pose here, I feel inclined to show all of that. Anyways. Almost there. Okay, so we got our hands and feet on there pretty well. Let's get the wings and stuff looking pretty good, or a little bit more actiony, action-packed. Let's have him where his neck's kind of bending more snakily. Like so. And the tail, curve it around. Let's curl that tip of it some. That's not a bad pose like that. Let's turn off that skeleton layer, see what it looks like. Actually, might can use a little bit more work here on this hand here. Let's turn that back on. Actually, need to pose this finger out a little bit. And maybe the same with this guy. Okay. That's a pretty decent looking pose. Maybe curl these wings out just a little bit more. Yeah. I like it. Okay. Yeah. Looks like a judge up on a pulpit or what are they? The bench or something. I don't know. I don't go to court very much. Anyways, so we got a nice pose going. Let's see what we look like when we render it. Go to our camera view, and let's make this a nice portrait style render rather than the landscape general video types. So let's go to our camera settings right there, and let's just flip-flop these. Let's make the top one 768 and the bottom one 1024. So 768. 1024. Okay, so now we got a nice portrait style. If you're wanting to do this for like a desktop, then you might want to do some different dimensions. You might keep it the original, but say we're looking up at him from the ground or something. This is the fun thing about your final composition. You can play with whatever angle you want because it's 3D. One problem with tracking to a constraint like the camera is now, you can't twist it around. Like I'd like to be able to twist it and kind of get a nice diagonal view, but I can't because it's pointing directly at that empty. By the way, I'll go ahead and save this. So one way to get around that is to, let's get another empty right where the camera is. We're gonna Shift S, cursor to selected, and then Shift A, add an empty. Scale that up. And this time we're going to, let's grab the camera itself and go to track to that constraint. and then we'll parent the camera to that new empty. Control P, object. So if we rotate the camera around to where it's pointing the same way, I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but okay, that's about right. So now, if we grab the empty that our camera's parented to, you can see the camera moves along with it. I just scaled it up, by the way. Wow. It's not want to move when I'm in camera view, but if you come out, you can move it around like so. Then you can grab the camera and zoom in, and you can also rotate it and such. So yeah, it's probably better to do it without using an empty, but for the sake of time, I'll just do that. Okay, so that's not a bad pose right there. Okay, let's go ahead and save that one, and let's give that a render. So let's see what hopefully everything's turned on that needs to be turned on. Looking pretty decent so far. Almost there. Go ahead and zoom out some so you can see it on the full screen. Okay, there we go. That's a nice little composition. I know something going on weird. It must be a part of the texture mapping is kind of off maybe, but nothing to really worry about. But yeah, so anyways, you can just play with all types of different poses and angles and things like that to get some nice compositions going. Throw some style in there. Like I said, I made this diagonal. It's I don't say it's boring because of our subject matter is a dragon, and the dragons aren't boring, but it's more exciting when the camera is kind of at an odd angle. So anyways, I'm going to call this done on part 8. Hopefully you learned a couple of more things. And in part 9, we'll go over some basic animation techniques for a biped, multi-toed creature. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in part 9.